Welcome to the New Orleans Investment Conference. Welcome to the Gold Newsletter channel. My name is Kai Hoffmann. I'm the JR Mining Guy on Twitter and the CEO of the SOAR Financial Group. And it's time for a company introduction and a company update. It's with Rick van Nieuwenhuyse. He's the president and CEO over at Contango Ore. Rick, great to see you. Thanks for joining us here.
Good to be here, Kai. It's always a great conference.
Absolutely, it's buzzing out here. It's just starting up day one. You're my guinea pig here today, Rick. You're the first one. Appreciate that and appreciate the patience here setting this all up. But Rick, Contango Ore. Let's start with the cliff notes. Let's the 35,000 foot overview.
Sure, we're a U.S.-based company. We're actually based in Fairbanks, Alaska. We're NYSE American traded. We're not a Canadian company, not Canadian listed. Our symbol's CTGO. We have a 1 million ounce gold deposit that we discovered on land that's owned by an Alaska Native tribe, the Tetlin tribe. We've been working with them quite a while. They've been very good to work with. We partnered and formed a joint venture with Kinross in 2020 to develop our 1 million ounce, 8 gram per ton gold deposit. Very high grade, open pit. And what's unique about the arrangement is that Kinross has an underutilized mill in Fairbanks at the Fort Knox mine. And so our high grade ore, we're simply going to at site have a run of mine operation, put the ore in trucks, haul it up to Fort Knox, build a stockpile there, and then batch process it once a quarter. And we're basically doing all that now. We're fully financed, we're fully permitted. We started mining about probably almost 3 months ago now, in the summertime. Started the stockpile at Manchot, and now we're starting to deliver that stockpile up to the mill at Fort Knox and building that stockpile there. So we should be in production in early 2024.
It's fast. It's very fast. Like, run me a bit through the history of the company, because I know you haven't been there from the get-go, I think.
No.
So run me a bit through that history and how did you get to that point?
Yeah, so Contango actually originally went up as an oil and gas company to explore, at the invitation of the tribe, to explore their lands for oil and gas. And fortunately or unfortunately, there's no hope of any oil and gas on the lands. It's all high-grade metamorphic rock. So the team quickly pivoted and they said, okay, well, let's spin out a gold company and we'll explore for gold. They hired a local contractor, Kurt Freeman and Avalon Development, to do the exploration work on behalf of Contango. They financed it, essentially with friends and family financing. Contango Oil and Gas was traded on the over-the-counter, and so they spun out the gold company. Fairly quickly had success in finding a deposit. They had to build a road up to it, and you know, all this stuff takes a little bit of time. But in the end, found this nice deposit, good grade, but it really wasn't big. And it was friends and family finance, so they didn't really want to keep pouring money into the thing when they knew they had a pretty nice deposit. And that's when they hired me to basically sort of say, okay, what do we do with this thing now? We found this nice deposit. So we basically, long story short, we did a pre-feasibility level study that demonstrated the viability of the project. And then that's in 2020, you remember, first year of COVID, things were a little crazy. Market prices were crazy. But we started a discussion with Kinross, with the concept of using their mill as a milling facility. And what that meant for us and our shareholders, that we didn't have to capitalize building our own mill and tailings facility, and really importantly, not permitting a tailings facility, which in the United States would probably take you 5 years, realistically, and cost a lot of money. And then the third thing is power. We're right on the road. We're right off the Alaska Highway, so from that point of view, infrastructure is close by, but there's no power. We're not on grid power, so we'd have to have our own power plant, and that's another whole permitting headache. So this really just short-circuited and sidestepped a whole bunch of issues in permitting and capital raising, and these are tough markets. We all know that. So this got us there quicker. So in basically now 3 years, we've gone from zero to mining and stockpiling, and as I said, in early 2024, we should be on the path to production.
I'm curious about the economics, and you said you've done a PFS, but how was that PFS modeled? Was it modeled on a Kinross scenario, or was that modeled on a standalone scenario?
So that was actually modeled on a standalone scenario. So when Kinross entered the picture, we actually ended up doing a feasibility study. So that was published about 1.5 years ago. last summer, I guess it was. Basically the economics, bottom line economics is that our all-in sustaining costs are $1,119 per ounce. And that includes a toll paid to Fort Knox. So we have a joint venture with Kinross at site. So Manh Choh site is a joint venture, 70/30. It's called Peak Gold. Peak Gold joint venture. So Peak Gold then has a tolling arrangement with Fort Knox. Kinross owns 70% of Peak Gold. We own 30%. So they've had to pay themselves 70%, which is just money going back and forth. But they do actually get a credit for our 30%. So their all-in sustaining costs are lower as a result of that. But again, we didn't have to build a mill and tailings facility and all that. So our capital costs were in the neighborhood of $200 million on a 100% basis. So our share was, $67 million roughly of that. We're pretty much on budget and we're ahead of schedule. We'll actually get next year's plan and budget here in the middle of November, so we'll have a good idea of what our...
Who's dictating that, the budget? Is that all Kinross?
It's all Kinross, yeah. So they're the manager or operator of the project. It's their mill. Yeah. There's two major contracts in place. One is the mining contractor, and that's Kiewit. They're one of the largest in the world. Been in business a long time. So they were able to bring all the equipment that we needed in a timely fashion, and we're doing a lot of pre-stripping early on. So nice thing about having a mining contractor is when you need the equipment, it's there, and when you don't need it, it leaves. Yeah. So again, it's a lease arrangement, not have to purchase that capital. And then the other main contractor is Truck Haul, and that's a local Alaska contractor, Black Oil Transport. They're based just out of Fairbanks, and these are special purpose built trucks, have all the extra safety bells and whistles. They're B-trained, so they're fairly low profile, and they'll travel the highway, Alaska Highway, between Tok, effectively, which is the town right next to the deposit. And then the Fairbanks, the Fort Knox mill is about 20 miles outside of Fairbanks, just northeast of Fairbanks. And they'll deposit their side dumps, so they'll side dump the ore into a stockpile area on the Fort Knox area. So we'll generate, for our 30% share on average, we'll generate 67,000 ounces of gold per year, all-in sustaining costs $11.19, and then that should generate about $50 million of free cash flow at today's.
I was going to ask you, that was my next question.
Yeah, roughly today's.
And the second part of my question would have been, when do you expect cash flows to start kicking in?
Yeah. So I think the guidance has always been by the middle of the year. We think we're a little ahead of schedule. Again, we'll see when we get our new budgets from Kinross at the end of the year, for 2024 budget cycle. So yeah, $50 million free cash flow a year. Let's say it starts mid-year, just to keep things straight. So let's say it's $25 million free cash flow next year, and then that goes for 5 years. So we've got a 5-year mine life. It's a huge exploration package of land. The Tetlin tribe owns private land the size of the state of Rhode Island. So it's a small state, but it's a big tract of land, and we've only explored a very small piece of that in any detail. Lots of targets, lots of things to start redirecting our efforts at as we go forward here. Of course, since Kinross's involvement, the focus has been on getting the mine up and running. So once that's done, we can start to change.
Use of proceeds is to explore, add more meat to the bone, and extend mine life, obviously.
Yeah, that would be the next objective for the Peak Gold joint venture.
Does the Kinross deal have a time limit or anything on it, or is that open-ended?
Nope, it's a joint venture for as long as we both want to.
So the more ounces you find, the longer you can feed their mill.
Correct. Yeah.
Fantastic. You're financed. Do you have enough cash to get to cash flow?
Yep.
I think you have $17 million in the bank. I read somewhere.
Yeah, that's about right. We just made a cash call, the November cash call. So it's November, so time to spend money. Now we have $70 million line of credit with the banks. We've only borrowed 20-ish. Okay. So yeah, we've got a lot of room here. The one thing about the processing that we want people to understand is we're batch processing for a month, roughly once a quarter. So Manh Choh ore. So you build a stockpile, roughly 250,000 tons, and then you process it. It takes about a month to process the ore, and then they run Fort Knox ore through there. and then next quarter again. So you need 3 months of working capital between batches, and so that startup, that ramp up, and that's like any ramp up periods like that, right? This is just kind of all or nothing for the quarter.
Fantastic. In terms of news flow, because you're not exploring right now, I understand. Like it's more, okay, let's get this going, let's get this into production, let's start processing here. Any times of news flow we can look forward to?
Yeah, it'll be a little skinny for the next little bit here, just because it's until we build the stockpile. I mean, we show pictures of the trucks going back and forth and things like that, but when we're building the stockpile, but until we actually run the batch, we won't have a whole lot of news. We are exploring on our other project at Lucky Shot, but not right now. We're shut down for the winter just because we can drill in the winter time because we're underground, but it's more expensive and you've got to move snow around. And the market's it just didn't seem like
there's no rush to do it. Right
exactly,
now.
It wasn't a big rush to get out there. We'll get out there next summer, and we think we can do the same thing with our Lucky Shot project, which is located just north of Anchorage, right off the highway. In fact, it's right off the railroad. There's a railroad between Fairbanks and Anchorage. So we've got a small, high-grade resource outlined at Lucky Shot. It's about 100,000 ounces, about 14.5 grams per ton. So really good grade. It's an underground mining situation.
Some trucking. That grade.
Exactly. So. Well, and we have the rail there. So rail's about a fifth the cost of trucking. Yeah. So it's early days. We've got a lot of work to do, but we have all the underground infrastructure now to get underground and just drill the heck out of this thing. It was a vein that was mined late 1920s to 1942 when President Roosevelt used the War Act to shut down all gold mining. And so, it was they were mining ounce and a half or ounce and a quarter material before the shutdown, and it was just shut down administratively. So we've just gotten underground, put the infrastructure in place so that we can drill the down dip portion from where they mined historically. It's a mesothermal vein, so we know these things go for a distance. We're not going to run out of ore right away. We've got the pilot holes tested. We know that the vein is there, and we put the infrastructure in place so we can just drill this thing off on sort of 25-meter centers and just get going. So we'll start that this summer, summer 2024. So the nice thing is we think we can do the same thing we've done with Manh Choh. It's just we're fully permitted. We're fully permitted for mining. So if we throw rocks in a box and haul them up the highway or the railroad up to the Fort Knox mill, it's low capital, and it's good. It's got grade, so we're good there too. Okay. So
fantastic. Quickly back to Manh Choh, because you brought up the winter. Yep. How is that factored in? Is that going to be an issue at all?
No,
is that part of the process?
It's just mining in the wintertime. It's dark, so turn on the lights. It's cold, so be safety wear, those sorts of things. But mining itself is actually easier in the wintertime. The hardest time about mining is when there's lots of water around. Yeah. And so in wintertime there's no water around. So it's frozen. So yeah, there's no issues with mining. The transportation plan, we'll definitely have days where we won't be able to transport the ore, blowing snow, and we don't get a lot of snow in interior Alaska. It's cold. It'll get 40 below, and at 40 below, it doesn't matter whether it's Celsius or Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Isn't that one where it meets?
42. Where
Celsius and Fahrenheit is the same or something? Yeah.
Yeah. So. They cross over there, so it's cold when it's crossed over like that. But it doesn't really. So we'll have some days built into the transportation plan to say, okay, it's blowing snow and it's not safe to run the trucks, so we won't run the trucks. So. There's plenty of capacity in the build that stockpile there. So
no, fantastic, great, fantastic update. Really curious how the process of just continues, and really can't wait for first cash flow.
Yeah, same here. We're excited. It's a good time. There's certainly folks out there who are like they just don't like mining. So and we know that, and we know they're out there, and hopefully we'll just work our way through all the issues that come up that are related to that, the social licenses they refer to it. So
super important. Fantastic. Rick, thank you so much for joining us here. Really appreciate it. Have a great conference. Just about to kick off. I think this is the first official day. Yesterday were some workshops and introductions, but
we're excited to be here. We have a luncheon this afternoon. The We had 50 tickets to give away, and at last evening's opening ceremony, they were all gone. So
oh, fantastic.
Should be a fun day.
Absolutely, fantastic. Everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this update here with Rick van Nieuwenhuyse over at Contango. Or join us for more content from the New Orleans Investment Conference, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in.